Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Bloxcast for February 1st, 2018. We're glad to have you with us today, and in particular because it's gratifying when we get a bunch of new people who've registered for our program. So welcome to all those who are with us for the first time today. Our topic today is how to simply sell reporting and analytics with our top 5 reports. Our presenters today are Dirk Bensloff, Director, Worldwide Partner Business Development. Roger Barlow is the Senior Product Manager for DDI, Bob Rose, Senior Product Marketing Manager for DDI, and Steve Sallow is our Principal Systems Engineer. And these are the folks who are going to be talking about reporting and analytics. And at the end of our program, Brandon Berg will be with us, Senior Manager of Worldwide Partner Programs. And now to get us underway, here's Dirk Bensloff.
Thank you, Rick, and welcome everybody. Welcome to February Bloxcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your attendance during this series. So we'd like to expand today a little bit on some of the things that we talked about previously. We have some really awesome guest speakers here that are subject matter experts, both in the product development and in the field as far as how it's practically used with our customers today on the reporting side. Our most recent Bloxcast, we talked about the core bundle, and there are many components that comprise, those features and functionality. As a quick reminder, it was taking our core DDI, we're adding load balancing, advanced threat protection, DNS security as well. But the big one here that we're talking about today is reporting. And when you talk to your customers about, the technologies that you're driving, that you're showing them, how it improves their business, drives business outcomes, how do you actually tell that something is actually happening and you're showing what's really, going on in the implementation? Well, of course, it's reporting. And it seems to me that it's such an obvious place to look and show, not only to manage what is happening, and I'm not going to steal all these guys' thunder, but to actually show that we are doing some pretty amazing things relative to the technology here. And a great selling point, and it's really the show me what it's doing that is really going to drive some sales there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob Rose, our Senior Product Marketing Manager at DDI, to get things started. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, hey, Dirk, thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. This is Bob Rose. So to get things kicked off, when it comes to the network, we have Roger and Steve with us today, as both Dirk and Rick mentioned. And so, guys, how critical is visibility on the network? Roger?
Bob, visibility is super critical, especially when you have a product like Infoblox, right? Because as Dirk mentioned, we're not just the core DDI services. We're not just DNS, DHCP, and IPAM, but we're also building a bunch of value on top of that, right? So we've got our security products. We've got our network discovery capability, which goes in and looks at network configurations and network topologies and uses that to enrich IPAM. So we've got a ton of data about what's going on in the network. People don't get on the network unless they get an IP address from us. They don't traverse the network unless they talk to our DNS. So we've got we're situated in a very interesting spot on the network, and we have a very interesting finger on the pulse. And the only way to visualize all of that in a historical sort of functional way is with reporting and analytics.
Yeah, that's awesome. Steve, what about security? What are your thoughts on that?
Right, yeah, so not only what Roger was saying from a visibility perspective, but when you think about it, how do you stop bad actors from stealing their data and infecting your systems? If you're relying on manual processes and disparate solutions to kind of run and analyze the network and look and see what you have out there, how do you really make the decisions to ensure the application security, availability, and performance? How do you pull it all together into one place? And with the Infoblox reporting, we give you that perspective from DNS that really ties it all together.
And that's the key, Steve. We give you that, right? We've already built it. This product has been in the market for almost 5 years now, over 5 years. So we've had a lot of time to invest engineering resources into the hard part of developing this kind of visibility, right? Which is gathering all the data, getting it into a central spot, parsing out the KPIs from the data that you've pulled, and then presenting it back to the user in a very functional way. And we've got over 100 reports out of the box.
Yeah, now this is great. So, the good news is, as we kind of look forward here, is that our reporting and analytics solution integrated with the grid can really address a lot of these types of questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's agenda. So we're going to look at the critical business concerns, the core network services, and how we solve business challenges. We'll also talk about the deployment in terms of how simple and cost effective it is. And we'll give you an overview of some of the sample reports and how those are easier than do it yourself. And then kind of the star of the show today is the top 5 reports. And we're really going to go into a little bit deeper dive, not only kind of highlighting details around those reports, but then Roger is going to actually give you a demo and how those are so important to visibility on the network. And then we're going to wrap up with some other information around selling, reporting, analytics, as well as query logging. And so by the time we're done, you will know how the top 5 pre-built reports and dashboard integrations can give you a wealth of core network services data information on demand. You'll know how that you can have complete visibility really to the network anytime, any place, and how to detect DNS-based threats and solve problems faster with current and historical views. And then, of course, you'll also know how to use automation to simplify and reduce audit time and compliance, and then predictive analytics to ensure business continuity and plan for the future. So these are the things that we're looking forward to on today's presentation. So let's move now into the critical business concerns that typical businesses will have. Often there's challenges when trying to manage core services across the network. If you need to prove compliance for an audit, for example, how easy is it to track and report on what happened over time, such as which IP addresses were in use a week or even a month ago, and which end users had DHCP leases. So that's important to know from an audit compliance standpoint. What about if there's a problem happening now with an application, and typically the network is, the first to blame? And how is it, is it easy enough to identify if DNS or DHCP is impacting application availability? And then, of course, as Steve mentioned earlier, security, is becoming more and more proactive. And so how easy is it to identify if end devices have security vulnerabilities or might be using DNS as a way to communicate with a botnet host, or perhaps stealing some critical data via DNS? So again, security is really important. And then ultimately, when you're looking at capacity planning, since DNS and DHCP are so critical to the network, identifying when the current capacity may not meet future requirements often is a tedious and error-prone process. And so, when dealing with these challenges across the network, reporting and analytics really helps customers solve problems that occur not only in the past, but are happening now, and then planning to meet requirements in the future. So it really gives you that comprehensive view. So changing gears a bit, Roger, maybe you can talk with us a little bit about how reporting and analytics optimize the core network services.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, it's about more than just core network services, but also about all of the other value components that we add in addition to that, right? So again, is network discovery of physical networks by interacting with switches and routers, discovery of virtual networks by interacting with hypervisors and their networking modules and capabilities. We're also interacting even with Microsoft. So we have a product that manages Microsoft in environments where Microsoft are running DNS and DHCP. So we can even gather information from all of that. So in terms of optimization, it's really getting all of this data into a centralized place from all these different components that make up the network. Again, whether it's a Microsoft server serving DNS and DHCP, whether it's a switch or a router, whether it's virtual infrastructure, all of those have some sort of stake in the network. So bringing all of this into a central portal and being able to visualize the relationship of all these in one place, and the metrics and the KPIs all in one place is really how we get better efficiency out of the network.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as you can, surmise here, this is all about solving business challenges. And so we have tools to be able to do that. And as you know, Infoblox Reporting Analytics offers some really deep visibility into the DDI ongoings on the network. So with a simple addition of a reporting grid member, reporting analytics provides audit and compliance visibility into core DNS data. So you can, the customer can slice and dice graphs. They can have pie charts. They can drill down into the HTTP details. They can ingest feeds from best-in-breed partners and really centralize security views in one solution, as Roger mentioned. In addition to that, app availability and performance certainly enables customers to view and measure the DDI detail to monitor core network services supporting their most business critical applications. From a security standpoint, they get visibility into the core DNS data and security by drilling into the network detail logs and then finding root cause to problems much more quickly than they would otherwise. And then from a capacity planning perspective, they can view past data sets and see what's coming in through appliances. They can use predictive analytics to warn the customer when they might expect an outage or another problem. And being able to track and trend and predict key capacity parameters enable them to ensure key network services and that those will be available in the future. So those are some of the key values in terms of reporting analytics. But on top of that, we also have DNS-based query logging as well that enables customers to do a deeper view into security forensics. So they can get a detailed query history of infected clients, for example, or they might want to do some access logging study to see security and audit impacts. So that gives them visibility into the queries by clients and domains. In essence, who accessed what and what was accessed by whom. So that's very important. And then again, from an audit compliance standpoint, having historical logging of device domain query records is absolutely essential. And one of the key advantages is we can go back a couple of years. And can you imagine if an auditor is talking with you and you can simply say, yep, I can give you that information and it's just a few keystrokes away and not having to ramp up into a big fire drill. So, I mean, these are all really important and valuable features that you can take advantage of, that your customers can take advantage of. So let's change gears now and look at how simple it is to deploy reporting and analytics. Roger, can you walk us through that?
Absolutely, Bob. And I wanted to go back to something and touch on something you said earlier, right? You said with the simple addition of an Infoblox grid member, and that's really what it is to get Infoblox reporting and analytics into a grid. It's just a matter of adding a reporting and analytics grid member, just like you're adding any other Infoblox grid member. So we've delivered and bundled up and really streamlined and optimized the deployment of reporting and analytics into our appliance delivery model. You can literally have this solution deployed and functional in less than 20 minutes for a single node cluster, and then adding additional nodes is another 10 or 15 minutes tops to build out a full-blown cluster. So it's just a grid add-on. It's a license in a virtual or physical appliance. It can be clustered very easily for disaster recovery or high availability purposes. So you can do single site high availability or multi-site high availability, multi-site disaster recovery. Lots of different configurations you can leverage with clustering here. And I just want to point out, clustering becomes important as customers use our solution and become sort of dependent on the data that it provides and the alerts that it generates around what's going on in the environment. High availability becomes important to ensure that those alerts can be counted on and delivered in a timely fashion. So there's also should point out that there's flexible licensing options. This can be delivered in a perpetual or a subscription model. In the case where we're doing query logging or something that has potentially a large fluctuating kind of data volume, we really encourage going with a subscription model because subscription has some advantages in terms of scaling and flexibility and sort of adding more capacity to the infrastructure as well as the licensing of it. So in query logging scenarios or really advanced use cases, we highly recommend going with subscription. And then also there's another component that's involved with this for query logging. It's called the data connector. And that data connector is really about getting the maximum efficiency from two dimensions. One is maximum efficiency for ensuring that we're not taxing the grid members in order to get the query logs. And the second vector is maximum efficiency in terms of the communication format of that DNS query data. So it does some interesting optimization of the data format before we send it over to the reporting servers to minimize the amount of indexing necessary to store that, essentially resulting in a lower cost of storing query log data.
Well, what we'd like to do now is to ask your feedback in response to our first polling question. As you can see, the polling question is on your screen. What's the single most difficult challenge you faced in selling reporting and analytics? So if you will pick your top answer, we'll give you a moment to do that, and then we'll display the results momentarily.
Just look in the poll window that opened and select your choice. Click Submit. And let's see, we've got almost half the group voted. Just a couple more seconds. It's interesting to see these results coming in, and you'll see them in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, and let's display the results.
So it looks like customers already have a tool like Splunk, and it's evenly split. It seems like customers don't feel the investment is worth it. So hopefully we can help them change their views on that. So why don't we move ahead then to the next slide? We would like to now just talk about some of the sample reports and how they're actually a lot easier than do it yourself. One of the biggest challenges asked is, and it really speaks back to what our polling question just showed, why would I purchase reporting and analytics if I already have a reporting engine like Splunk? But if customers already use a tool like Splunk, then they understand the value of detailed visibility and tracking. And so Infoblox just takes it up multiple levels. First we have integrated data collection with the Splunk engine. So you can take advantage of, powerful customization and visualization options. Really the biggest difference is what is added. So reporting analytics has, access to the data that's not available with other tools. We built the best collection capabilities with super tight integration into our DDI platform, so the customers have access to information that no one else can. In addition, reporting analytics leverages a centralized data archival technique that uses the grid technology. So what that means is the most comprehensive data collection with minimal indexing, as Roger just mentioned a few moments ago. So often Infoblox reporting and analytics actually uses less indexing, which means overall less cost than Splunk itself. And that's really important to note. And then also, instead of requiring a team to figure out kind of which data to collect and attempting to validate it and building the reports and so on, Infoblox does that for you. We live and breathe DDI, and we can provide accurate and validated results. We've also added algorithms and predictive reports that no other platform provides, and that helps take the guesswork out of intelligence analysis. And finally, as Roger mentioned a moment ago, we have over 100 reports right out of the box with the ability for customers to customize hundreds or thousands of others. And so instead of having to figure out what reports might be possible, they can leverage the base of reports and then customize based on their needs. So even though Infoblox uses Splunk under the hood, these key differences really provide a massive value enhancement versus a do-it-yourself model. So given that, let's take a quick peek at what's available. On the next slide, what you'll see is some sample pre-built report categories, and there frankly are many. So reporting and analytics gives you real-time management using extensive and customizable historical reporting predictive analytics engines and out-of-the-box reports, so you can open and customize and start using those reports today without making it a big project or getting resources and building from scratch. So you can, the customer can collect and analyze and visualize granular core network data. They can perform free-form searches. They can produce interactive reports and dashboards with drill-down capabilities. They can conduct detailed investigation of events. They can identify anomalies, easily collect compliance and audit data, and share reports and dashboards. They can use predictive analytics to model future patterns of network behavior. They can capture and share reports via the Infoblox community and really network to get best ideas and best practices. And then they can manage their deployments with really the most reliable and secure service for real-time management views and robust customizable reporting. And as Roger mentioned, all within a single platform. So,
Bob,
you know, there's
if I could interject, Bob. So you touched on something really important there about the community, right? So one of the advantages too about this Infoblox product is the fact that we've got thousands of customers that all use the same data model, right? So if you were to use external Splunk and sort of build it yourself, you'll kind of just come up with whatever data model you've stumbled on as you try to build it yourself. We've got thousands of customers who all use the same data model, which means that this community is actually very thriving. People are constantly contributing new material there, and it's something, whatever someone contributes something, it's 90% of the time something that everyone else can consume and utilize.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just the power of networking is really a powerful tool to have. So, well, Roger, I think it's time. Let's shift gears and start looking at our top 5 reports.
Sounds good. All right. So we had a tough time narrowing down the 100+ reports down to 5, and really, the top 5 is also very contingent on a given customer's business needs, right? So we narrowed it down to the top 5 we think are sort of generally applicable to everybody, and are really the most informational in terms of the DDI capabilities of Infoblox. And at number 5, we have the DHCP lease history report. This one is a log of which MAC addresses had which IP addresses at a given point in time. And this is really important for network and security administrators, just so they can go back and historically look at who was where on the network over time. It's really important so that they can correlate either what IP addresses a given MAC address has had over time, or what where a MAC address has moved across the network. It comes out of the box as one of the 100 reports we provide, and it's located in the dashboards tab of the product. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at this report. So this is our DHCP lease history. We'll go to dashboards, and this is a demo environment, so we've got well over the 100 dashboards that we provide out of the box. But what I'm going to do is narrow this down by typing history here, and here we've got DHCP lease history. Okay, so here is, so it's going to take a moment while it goes back and finds some data, but what we're looking for is the lease history over the last day. You can see that we've got a ton of great filtering capability here. You don't have to have any Splunk expertise to get benefit out of this report out of the box. We've got all of these great filter elements here. I could type in an IP address and narrow this down very easily. I could type in a host name and narrow it down by that vector, or I could type in a MAC address and narrow it down by there. So a lot of great capabilities here. Maybe I only care about Microsoft machines, so I could come in here and filter out by our DHCP fingerprint capabilities. So very flexible, very powerful. You can see here that I've got the timestamp of when the lease action happened. I can see what member serviced this, right? So that gives me an idea of where it sits on the network. The member IP that served it, so that's the same IP address of this Infoblox member. I can see the protocol. I can see the lease action itself. I can see the lease IP, and I can see the MAC address that's associated with that. So I can also see the actual parameters of the lease itself. When does the lease start? When does the lease end? And the fingerprint as detected by our DHCP fingerprinting capability.
Right. This report's really, Roger, it's a huge time saver for customers. Because a lot of times the security teams are doing an investigation. They know there was some IP address that was involved in some malicious activity or some questionable activity, and maybe it was a month or two ago on the network. So they asked the network team, hey, who had this IP address? We need to know that. We need to investigate that further. And instead of having to go through hundreds of thousands of lines of syslog trying to track it down and correlate and figure that out, they can just go right into this report, punch in the IP address, find the period of time, find out which device it had, and they have all that information right there at their fingertips.
Thanks for the insight, Steve. Let's look at the report number 4. For this one, we selected the DNS domains queried by client. So this is a report that allows us to essentially search the query logs. We were talking about query logging earlier. This is again important to network admins and security admins because it allows them to go back and look at that information, that who queried what, as either for security purposes, for audit or compliance purposes. So it's really applicable to both network admins and security admins. And again, it's important because it helps them identify which clients are querying for a specific domain, or all of the clients that have queried a given domain, or all of the activity of a given client. So you can really understand who's doing what. It's out of the box for reporting analytics, but this report will actually not show any data until the data connector component is added to it. And again, the data connector component is it's an external component. There's no charge for using it for query logging purposes to power this report. But again, it's really designed to offload a lot of the compute required to deal with query logging data and minimize the impact on the protocol serving the grid members. So let's go ahead and take a look at this report in a real environment. So we'll go back to our reporting dashboard, dashboards tab, and we're looking at domains queried by client. So I'm just going to filter this down by queried. DNS domains queried by client comes up on our list. And here we go. Again, we can see we've got some great filtering capability. I can come right in here and look at all of the activity for a given IP address, or I can search to figure out who's interacting with a given domain. I can adjust my time frame here, which I'm going to do because it's a demo environment. I don't have any query data in here for today. So maybe I want to come in and do all time. And I have a suspicion that something's going on with a domain that has DDNS in the name. I can wildcard it like this and execute my query. And you'll notice that this comes back reasonably fast. I mean, we're searching for all data for all time. So it immediately came back and started giving me some useful information. I've got already over 10 pages worth of information about this, about domains containing DDNS in the name. I can further refine this down. Maybe I only really care about maybe there's a vulnerability on the mail side, the SMTP side, so I really only care about MX records here. So I've got the ability to quickly and easily filter this out. You'll notice I don't have to have any Splunk expertise to do any of this. But if I do have Splunk expertise and I want to take advantage of that, it's easy for me to do that. I can actually come in here and open this into the back-end Splunk search mode. And in here you can see all of the Splunk search processing language that drives this search and creates this dashboard. I can also see all of the raw events themselves that come from the data connector here. So we can see, this is again the raw event. We can see the domain that was queried. We can see the source IP, all the information that we saw before. This is just a raw format for that. Steve, did you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this report here, this is really an important report because this report alone can help sell this entire solution to a security team. So I had a customer, for example, the security team wanted all of the query log information and data, and they wanted to send that off to their own reporting, whether it be Splunk or some other engine, and they were going to try to figure out how to correlate and how to build reports and look at all that information. And all I had to do was show them this report, show them how easy it was, show them how flexible it was, show them how you could search on a particular domain and see anybody that's queried it, or you could search on a particular client and see all the domains that they queried. And that was huge, and that alone was enough for them to make a significant investment into the reporting solution. So if we talk about this report, you show this report to customers and security teams, they're going to be very interested in this.
So essentially, we had already built what they were looking for, and we probably were able to deliver to them at a lower cost than if they were to invest the man hours to develop themselves, plus all the cost of the Splunk infrastructure, plus the cost of the actual Splunk license.
And Roger, one other thing that's just amazing about this is how fast this data is available, right? I mean, it didn't take you very long at all to drill down into this content.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a look at the third report, on our top 5. So for this report, we selected the DNS query rate by query member. This is a graph, as you can see, and allows us to look at the volume of DNS queries coming across each of our Infoblox grid members. This is useful for DDI admins for troubleshooting purposes. They can get a really good finger on the pulse of what the DDI activity looks like in the environment. Also, it's good to just look at that historical trending information. So without the reporting and analytics product, we do have some information on what's going on in the environment, but it's more of a real-time view. Whereas if you have reporting in analytics, you can get this historical trending data, and you can trend back, months or years. It comes out of the box, and it's also in the dashboards tab. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. So if we go back to our dashboards tab, we are looking for our DNS query rate by member. So let's narrow this down to query rate. Helps if you spell it properly. Okay, DNS query rate by member. This view should look pretty similar to what we saw on the screenshot. And again, as always with all of our reports that we provide, you've got the quick filters at the top, often referred to as nerd knobs by me. And after a moment, we'll start to see some data come back here as it's processing. So here we can see the query rate by member. What we can see if we hover over each one of these is exactly which portion of the query volume was done by which member. And actually, it looks like this environment has changed a little bit. It looks like one of our data generators has stopped running. But if I change our time frame here, we'll actually see some different data as well. So let me go ahead and make that change, and we'll see that happen. So it changed it from looking back 1 day to looking back 7 days. So now we're going to look at 7 days of history of the query trend. And I expect that this will look significantly different. Okay, here we go. So again, we can see who's doing exactly how many queries. One other thing that's interesting here is we can look at this in multiple different views. We can toggle around between that. So right now we're looking at a stacked area chart. I can also look at this in a table view, which is what you would expect to see from like an Excel spreadsheet or something, right? So you get a timestamp, you've got who's on the network, which server we're talking about rather, and then the actual volume that they're doing here. Or I can overlay both of them and get the visual and the data kind of view for both. At any point in time, I can, of course, export this as a PDF, and these can also be scheduled to be delivered on a scheduled basis.
Right, and this report, Roger, it's really an excellent starting point for the admins to come in and get an idea of what's going on in their environment from a volume perspective, from a DNS query perspective. And from there, they can go into other reports too, like we kind of mentioned here, some of those top X reports. So you may see a spike in there and you want to know, all right, who's the top talkers? Who's querying DNS the most, or were there a significant number of NX domains or different types of queries? So you can go into all those different reports.
All right, thanks, Steve. Let's take a look at the number 2 report. For this one, we selected the DHCP message rate trend. And this is kind of similar to the last one we looked at, but it's the same kind of view into the DHCP world, right? So we're looking at the flow of DHCP activity over time. It breaks this out for us by message type. This one, again, is primarily geared towards DDI admins and helping them understand, troubleshoot, maintain the Infoblox infrastructure, and just, again, keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in their environment. It's important because it shows the trend over time, and any spikes or dips here are going to be pretty obvious, and it's going to be really clear that there's some sort of anomaly in the environment, or maybe there was some network slowness or some application slowness, a couple of weeks back, or clients had difficulties connecting, and someone has an outstanding question about it. This is the kind of report that you could go into to verify or use it as evidence to deny something of that type. Let's take a look at that report in real time. So we're going to filter by rate trend, DHCP message rate trend. And just like before, we've got, of course, the filters across the top. Maybe I only really care about DHCP requests. Maybe I only care about a specific lease type. We've seen scenarios where devices on the network have gone a little bit crazy and essentially DDoS DHCP servers. And this kind of report would really call that out well and show just a spike of maybe a DHCP request activity from one given client. And as before, we can look at this in a chart or a table view or overlay both of them.
Right, like Roger was saying, it's really kind of the DHCP version of the DNS report, so you can look for those different anomalies or different things that are going on with maybe clients that are having an issue and causing a high volume of traffic. And one of the important things about the reporting too is, a customer could say, okay, yeah, this is great, but I have to come in here and I have to look for my problems. Well, no, if you look at the reports and the trending and you get a baseline on what the normal patterns look like, you can actually set different alerts based on thresholds. So if you want it to trigger an alert when you double the lease rate volume, for example, you can custom alerts in that to let you know about it.
That's a great point, Steve. I mean, looking at this chart, I would say that if I don't see anything go over 40, 40 is definitely on the high end for anything that's going on based on my historical data. So now I know what my threshold is. If something goes over 40, now I know that something's changed on my network, and it may or may not be a problem. So I could set a threshold on exactly a report like this and say that if I see over 40 messages per second, then I should be concerned. All right, let's take a look at the number one report. And for this one, we selected the IPAM v4 network usage statistics. And I think this is probably top of mind for every network administrator, right? When am I going to run out of IP addresses? And this is sometimes one of the main reasons why customers come to us looking for a solution. And this is one of the places where we can provide a lot of additional value around reporting. Just being able to show which networks have what level of utilization, being able to alert on that before it becomes a problem, and helping those network administrators be proactive. So let's go ahead and take a look at the IPAM v4 network usage statistics report in real time. Let's search for network usage. Here we go, IPAM v4 network usage statistics. And when we pull this guy up, as before, we've got all kinds of great filtering here. We can filter by network. We can narrow down networks by size with the CIDR filter here. One of the things we find a lot in the NIOS console, we do provide network utilization in the NIOS console, but one of the things that we find a lot is customers, like for example, in DevOps environments, are carving out very small networks with a very limited number of IP addresses, and therefore they show highly utilized once they deploy and utilize all the IP addresses. So maybe I really only care about networks that are bigger than a /24. So you could filter that out, narrow that down. Maybe I only really care about networks whose utilizations are greater than 95%. So we could filter down those metrics and really sort of weed out this message down to the networks that we really only care about, which in this case is 8 networks. We've got 8 networks here out of the tens of pages that we saw before. These 8 networks are the ones that I really need to pay attention to. They legitimately have something potentially going wrong with them here. And we can see we've got some big networks that are 100% utilized. These are, /32, that's 100% utilized. We probably want to address that. Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this, like what you were saying, Roger, this one is really another time saver report for admins because it pulls a lot of this IPAM information together into one place, so they don't have to go into the UI and look at various networks and kind of pull statistics from there. They can just get it all from, one simple report and use that to, roll it up to maybe management's asking a question, well, how many networks do we have allocated, or how many IPs do we have allocated across various networks? And you can get all that information out of these reports.
All right. Thanks, Steve. We have our next polling question come up.
That's right. So if you could take a look at this, the question is, what is the most important reason customers need network reporting and analytics? So go ahead and pick your top single answer.
We have a few answers coming in now. Please select your choice, a single answer. We'll reveal that in just a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and end the poll. This will be interesting. And here are the results.
So it looks like audit and compliance to track and report on what happened over time seems to be the leader, and then uptime and performance of applications to make sure they're running as expected. So thank you for your feedback on that. That's really good. We'd like to change gears a little bit now and talk about the promotion that we have right now on subscription. So as perpetual licenses, have known scaling limits, what we want to do is extend an automatic 50% discount for any perpetual customer switching to a subscription license. So as Roger mentioned before, query logging can have a major impact. And so this is great also for high traffic volumes. And what's required here is to have a previous perpetual reporting purchase. And then, of course, this involves no active maintenance and no min or max indexing requirement. And it does have some prepay options. So again, this is coming up to an expiration sometime targeted around August 2018. So this is something to know about and to keep that in mind as we go forward. In addition to that, we have a reporting and analytics free tier offer that's happening, and this is essentially an opportunity for customers to try out reporting and analytics. So basically what it provides is a free 500 megabyte indexing per day software license, and this is free for subscription virtual machines or paid subscription with a physical appliance. And this really extends control of data. It's designed really around the indexing capacity. So 500 megabytes can get used up pretty quickly, but it still gives them a good view if they want to run a trial and see how this works. But then beyond that, we also have 2, 5, 10, and 20 gigabyte per day capability. And there are, of course, upgrades available for large highly active grids and DNS query and response logging, as we've mentioned, along with sending syslog data. And this is available for DDI customers with active maintenance. They have to be NIOS 7.3 or later. And this is really easy to get. Customers can request the reporting analytics free tier off the website. We are sending out this deck after our presentation today, and the links are active. So you could share those links as well. So
one of the other ways this gets used, Bob, actually is for sizing of a reporting purchase as well. So a lot of times what our field people will do is install reporting and analytics free and start to measure things like what the query per second rate looks like, what leases per second rate looks like, and then we'll actually use that baseline as a sizing for a paid reporting deployment.
No, that's great. That's great insight.
Right. One more comment on the free tier as well. I mean, we should really every InfoBlox customer should be running the free tier of reporting, because it does two things for us and for them. One, it gives them some additional value for no charge for some of the reporting and information they can get in there, and then that helps us because we have a better relationship with them and we're giving them more value. But two, when they do find that they need the additional volume because they do want to track more information from a reporting perspective, then that's good for us as well, because then they're going to look at buying one of those subscriptions for the reporting.
Thanks, Steve.
We do have a ongoing nurture campaign that's running right now. This really covers it covers over an 8-week period, and it's sent out virtually every couple of weeks. There's an email that goes out 1 week after the customer does the download. So this encourages the start of reporting analytics and offers the free training videos, the deployment guide, and the InfoBlox support. A couple of weeks later, a second email comes out to extend an invitation to join the InfoBlox community and the reporting forum. And so again, we've mentioned that for networking and best practices. And then email 3 comes out about 5 weeks after the download, and that offers additional security team support. We've talked a lot about security today, and that again gives security teams deeper network visibility with our pre-built reports. Of course, they don't have to wait that long, obviously, but those reports are available virtually immediately if they want. And then the fourth email comes out, and that really helps customers if they bumped up against that 500 megabyte limit per day to get additional capacity. So this is again a way to help customers learn more about reporting analytics and start using it to see and get greater visibility on their network. So let's talk about best practices. So what we want to do, Roger, maybe you can walk us through this.
Yeah, sure. So really, we want to try to get all of the opportunities onto subscription, right? So we want to position all reporting deals for max scalability, which entails, positioning subscription, mainly because of easy upgrade capability. So it's very easy to exchange a 5 gig subscription license for a 10 gig subscription license, and there's no throwaway, right? The customer doesn't have to throw away their 5 gig license. We actually do a prorated refund and then apply that towards their 10 gig subscription. Whereas if you're on perpetual and you bought, an Infoblox 810 reporting that has bundled hardware and software, and then you need to upgrade to 1400, you have to throw away that 810, the license, the hardware, all that goes away, and you have to buy a separate license and a separate piece of hardware. So in any reporting scenario where a customer should potentially, qualify for scaling, we want to try to get them into a subscription licensing model. Now, you can scale out the perpetual license model by clustering and adding additional nodes, but it's likely it's much more costly to the customer in the end. So where possible, we want to position subscription and get customers pointed in that direction. Ideally, you want them on virtual machines. For infrastructure scalability, we've got this new V5005 VM, which is completely unrestricted, and it can only be used in a subscription deal, but there's no limit on CPU, memory, or disk that can be allocated to this VM for use with reporting. So the subscription on that V5005 model is what gives us the ultimate in flexibility for reporting and scaling on reporting. So that's really where we want to get all of our customers. So position on all reporting opportunities, again, subscription, use the largest VM available. I did mention that V5005 is ideal for using in subscription environments. There's a bug with that virtual machine right now where it does not work with the free license. So for now, we're encouraging customers to use the V2205, which is the largest model that we have that that's not completely open, and then we can scale them from there at least on the disk size. So that's what we're doing now for free customers. Ultimately, what we want to have, though, is all free customers get the V5005, and then they can scale that either horizontally or vertical to meet their needs. And then best practice is, work closely with your Infoblox sales team. We'll help you get the indexing capacity necessary, calculated out for the customer. Again, maybe we'll use the free tier to get a baseline and then go from there.
So there's lots and lots of resources available. We have the learning management system. We have webinars and recordings like we're doing today. There's customer presentation. We have the data sheet and the solution note that's available. Again, these are available on the website. We mentioned the free tier nurture campaign that's going on, and there's some training around that. And then there's just a number of really valuable tools. We have the reporting analytics deployment guide, free learning videos, again, off the website. They're available to customers, our community, our reporting forum, and of course the sample reporting book, which is certainly worth a look. So lots of resources available. So what we'd like to do is address, call to action. And as Roger's mentioned a couple of times during our session today, lead with subscription licensing for reporting analytics, primarily for scalability. Include the reporting free tier in every deal that doesn't already have reporting. That's just really important. And then show the value of reporting and query logging, and follow up with a free tier with the top 5 reports. Those customers that are interested, and you have some tools now to share some excellent value. So without further delay, we'd like to open it up for some Q&A now. So if you have any questions, Roger and Steve are available, and we'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Open up the Q&A window if you haven't opened it already, and enter your question in the text box and then click submit. We've got a couple questions, Bob. The first one was about the customers, how they're able to tell who's accessing their data and from which devices, and also how can they determine what the impact of that access is? So can your customers tell who is accessing their data from which devices and with what impact?
I'll take a stab at that one. So a lot of the reports we showed today can actually illustrate that, right? So for example, the query log can help us get an idea of which clients were querying which servers on the network. So that's a good indicator. If there's suspicion that somebody might have been doing something, that's probably a good starting point about seeing whether or not they definitively at least queried for that domain name. And then in addition to that, some of our security reports offer some malware detection, right? So we can also see if clients on the network are accessing known malicious domains. And then the other one that's probably applicable to that as well, or is at least good to know in that context, is our threat insight capabilities, where we can identify if there's a client on the network who's attempting to exfiltrate data, or at least doing activity that looks like data exfiltration. So all of those reports really do wrap up to that question about is somebody accessing something on the network? Are they potentially accessing data? And even worse, are they trying to get that data off of the network using DNS as a facility?
Thanks, Roger. I have one other question that came in. Which data and which of the 100 plus pre-built reports are the most valuable to the customers? So which data and which of the pre-built reports are the most valuable?
So that's, again, a highly variable question depending on the customer's business need. If the customer's primary need is security, we've got 15 or 20 security reports that leverage our security products. If the customer's primary concern is network availability, then we've got all kinds of reports that look at the Infoblox infrastructure and provides you great insights into what historical performance has looked like versus current, and even what future looks like, right? So we've got capabilities around predicting the utilization of critical metrics about the Infoblox infrastructure. And then also on the network availability side, I showed one of our IPAM reports about network utilization. We're even leveraging our predictive algorithms to predict when you'll run out of IP addresses based on historical consumption and historical growth over time. So all of those are critical in showing network availability. So again, to answer the question, we had a hard time narrowing it down to these 5 out of the 100 that we provide out of the box. By the way, there's like another 50 in the community. So it's really hard to narrow down to the top most used. We made an attempt to do that here, but it's going to vary from customer to customer. My recommendation is, take a look at our report sample guide, take a look at the community and see what's there. And I'm sure that you and your customers will find pretty quickly the reports that are important to you.
Great, thanks, Roger. That's it, Bob. It's it for questions.
All right, well, we appreciate, again, Roger Barlow and Steve Salo for joining us today. And perhaps we might look back to Dirk. Dirk, do you have any closing questions or any further comments by any of the panelists?
Hey, thanks, Bob and guys, and thanks for making the time for us today. There's really so much to talk about and exciting from a technology standpoint, and we appreciate you guys spending some time with us today. Really, the call to action for us is always, please engage us, your channel team, if you have any questions at all or follow on, we're happy to, bring more resources back into play to speak to a specific customer. So, everyone has been very willing on our side, from product management, marketing, you name it, in the field, to really help you, take a look at your business and help build out some use cases, for this and really show the value that you can bring your customers. So thanks for joining us today. Rick?
And we have Brandon on hand to tell us what's coming up next. Brandon?
Sure thing. So coming up next, we've got a few things. We've got next week, we are going to be having the Bloxcast for SEs. The same time, it will be all about threat containment with reporting and analytics. So a little bit of a follow-on, but it'll be a more technical presentation to go into that. And then in March, we will be back covering Active Trust Cloud. And along that Active Trust Cloud vein, I want you guys to keep your eyes peeled in the Partner Pulse, our partner newsletter that will be coming out next week, Tuesday, as we will have an exciting announcement in that Partner Pulse surrounding Active Trust Cloud, specifically surrounding about how our partners can leverage some of the selling tools to make some more money. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we all look forward to seeing you next week at the next Bloxcast, and then in March to talk about Active Trust Cloud. Thanks again for everybody for joining, and have a great rest of your week.